Welcome to Crimepedia. This week's host is me. It's Cherry, and next week will be Morgan. So with me today, as always, is my BFF. It is Morgan.
Hello, Cherry. Yes, it's your week this week.
It is my week this week.
Next week is mine.
It is. So yes, if you don't listen to our podcast regularly, then you won't know that. But we do alternate our weeks. So one week will be my case and the next week will be Morgan's case. This week's cases have been crazy busy. We've had a lot of crossovers this week. So it's been quite a busy week for research for us this week. We've got a few people to say hello to. Need to say hello to Sherlyn. Hope you're okay. It's nice to hear from you. I'm glad it was really nice to speak to you this week. So hello to Sherlyn. And then there was also somebody else who I've now forgotten. I can't remember who it was. But hello. If I've spoken to you this week on Instagram, hello to you. Thank you very much for your messages. I greatly appreciate them.
Do you have to say hello to the Barrymore Appreciation Society?
Oh dear, yes. It's been very interesting. We do have a live episode coming up at CrimeCon this year, in which I'm going to be speaking to Sue Homan, who is the first wife, and the only wife actually, of Stuart Lubbock, who tragically was killed at Michael Barrymore's property. Some people aren't very happy that we're going to be doing the live episode. So I got a lot of grief this week on social media. But you know what? Got tough skin. Still going to do it. So that will be available for you to hear after CrimeCon if you're not there at the time. But do get yourself a ticket. We're going to both be there. Going to be a great show this year. There's lots of stuff booked in. And it's going to be amazing. So you can get your tickets. You can use the code Crimepedia to get yourself some money off of your tickets as well. And we'll see you there if you are coming.
And Mr. Barrymore, our invitation is still open.
If you would like to join us, we would love to have you.
We'll be nice. Yeah. We won't be mean. We aren't going to tag you. We're just going to talk.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yep. We have no agenda.
Well, we do. I have an agenda.
Oh,
the agenda is I would like more people to be talking about Stuart's case.
That is the only agenda we have.
That is the true agenda that we have. I would like Stuart's family to understand what happened that day. And so, we've got a lot of new information since we did our case. We did a case on it a couple of years ago, actually. We've got a lot more information since then. A lot has happened since then. And we've got new information that has come forward that is very interesting. So definitely check it out. If you can't get to CrimeCon, then of course you can listen. We will release the episode after CrimeCon so you can hear it from then.
So Cherry, what do you have for us this week?
This week's case is from Bristol, and this week is the case of Keith Burgess. A man described by his friends as the nicest guy you'll ever meet, friendly and helpful, was found dead in his flat with horrific injuries. Police couldn't find any reason that somebody would want to hurt him, particularly in this frenzied manner. The main suspect became an unknown male dressed in a distinctive hat. Who was he, and did he kill Keith Burgess? This is Crimepedia, and this is the murder of Keith Burgess. Okay, Morgan, so Keith Burgess was a 39-year-old man from Norfolk who lived in a basement flat in Duchess Road in Clifton in Bristol. They'd been living there for about 4 years. He was described as friends. Really, to be honest, I couldn't find anyone to say a bad word against him. Everybody who I read about, I watched interviews with, said that he couldn't be a more caring man. He would do anything for anyone. He worked as a steward for British Rail, and he worked out of Bristol Templemead Station. He mostly worked on the services between London and the southwest. So he would go up and down between the two. Now, he was also a server at Mass for his local church. So he was heavily involved in the church as well. Yeah. Now, he was a gay man, but he was single, very active in the church, but also spent a lot of time in his socializing time, going to gay clubs, going to pubs, socializing out with friends. His friends all said he was completely approachable, He kind of reminds me a little bit of the man from Downton Abbey. one of the butlers from Downton Abbey. He reminds me a bit of him. And he's a very nicely spoken man, very friendly. The customers all described him as lovely, and really, honestly, nobody had a bad word to say about this guy at all. It's not known that he's got any enemies. It's not known that he fell out with anybody. No bad relationships that anyone knew about. And they kind of said in some of the interviews that I read that if he did have something on his mind, it would be something that he would share with his close friends. He did have close friends to be able to share things with. Now, he had been on sick leave for about a week leading up to Sunday, the 17th of December in 1989. Now, this was the last Sunday before Christmas weekend, and he was due to go back to work that afternoon after being off for a week after having flu. So earlier that day, he went to mass as usual in the local church, which is a church called All Saints Church. It was about 5 or 6 minutes walk from his house. So it wasn't very far away, and it was very local church. So around 12:15, after the mass service, he went to the Alma pub, which was just around the corner from the church. And it's something that he did regularly. He would pop into the pub. They all knew him in there. Bar staff knew him. Regulars knew him in there. And he would regularly do that after church, pop to the pub and then go home. Now, he stayed there for less than half an hour, chatted with some regulars. People remember him being there, but nobody actually remembers him leaving the pub. So we're not sure 100% on the time that he left the pub. However, we do know that he was seen walking back close to his home at around 20 to 1 in the afternoon. He got home at about 1 o'clock, which I thought straight away, hang on a minute, he was seen walking home at about 20 to 1. I read that the church and his home were only about 5 to 6 minutes away from each other. So whether either that's a mistake and they're not that close to each other, or he was doing something on his way home. Okay. Because a journey of 5 to 6 minutes is not going to take you 20 minutes to walk. So either he was doing something on the way home, because nobody actually saw him leave, but he was seen at around 20 to 1. And then we know that he got home at about 1 o'clock. Now, the woman so let me explain how this house works. It looks like a big sort of Victorian house that's been kind of split into 2 apartments. Okay. So he lived in what was called the basement flat. So you'll have street level, and the basement flat will be down some stairs, and he would live in the downstairs flat. And then a lady called Betty lived in the street level flat upstairs. I don't know if there was another flat above that, because it's not ever mentioned. And looking at the pictures, I can't actually quite work out whether or not there is another one, or whether she's just got the top and he's just got the bottom. It's a really interesting setup, their flat, because there's an interconnecting stairwell between her flat and his flat. And I'll explain that to you in a minute. But she said that she was at home at lunchtime. She was with a friend, a lady called Janet, and she heard Keith get home from church, heard him close his front door, so she knew he was home. So she went down to see him by this interconnecting stairs. Now, their flats, you wouldn't have had to have gone outside the flat and down the stairs to see him, because you go in the front door, in her front door, which would be street level. And then in her flat, there is a stairway that goes downstairs. Now, from his, you would have to go down the stairs at street level into his flat. And then as you go into the hallway, on the left-hand side is the actual front door to his flat in this little hallway. To the right-hand side is a set of stairs that go up to Betty's flat. So you could lock that door. If she came down the stairs, she wouldn't necessarily be in his flat. She would be in the hallway. And then his front door is in that hallway.
Okay.
So the stairs do connect the 2 flats, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that she went down the stairs into his actual flat. It just went downstairs into a hallway, and then you could knock on the door, and then that would be that. So I wanted to make sure that was understood, because I didn't want people to think that you could just walk straight into his flat. So she went down the stairs. She had some presents for him that were left for him. And she popped downstairs, knocked on the door. He opened it, happy to see her. And then she gave him the presents. And as she was going back upstairs, somebody came to his door and knocked on his door. And she said, "Oh, are you expecting somebody?" And he said, "No, I'm on my way to work in a minute. I don't know who it is." So she said, "Okay," bid farewell to him, And as she was walking back up the staircase, she heard him open the door and speak to somebody. And she heard a man's voice. And she got the impression that even though she didn't see the person, she got the impression that it was somebody that he knew by the way he greeted this person.
Mm-hmm.
So she said that about half an hour later, she heard Keith's front door slam. So she just assumed he was off to work. She said to her friend Janet, "Oh, is that Keith?" Because she's got like a bay window. They both got like these bay windows. And her bay window looks out over the front of the house. And she was sat at the table. There's a little table and the dog was being groomed by the lady. And she sort of sat at this table looking out of the window. And she says, "Oh, is that Keith on his way to work?" Or she said, "That will be Keith on his way to work." And the friend looked out the window and said, "Oh, no, it's not. That isn't Keith." So when they looked out the window, they see a guy in a blue and white bobble hat. So this is like a winter hat with a bobble on the top, a knitted winter hat. So they thought, well, that's a bit strange. He's coming out of Keith's flat. That must have been the person that knocked on the door when she was downstairs. So she didn't think anything of it. And she just carried on her way. The guy left. That was the end of that. Now, Keith had been due to start work on the 2 p.m. train from Bristol to London that day. The train was delayed for 3 minutes because the staff were waiting for him to arrive, but he didn't turn up. So the train left without him and he was marked down as absent from work. So later that afternoon at, I believe, 4:30, Betty again used the stairs to go down to Keith's flat, of which I believe she had a key because she was going down to feed his cat. This is something that she did regularly. She did this regularly for him, fed his cat if he was away because he worked on the trains. But he was home that day, so I don't know why he didn't feed his cat in the morning. But I don't have a cat, so I don't know how often you feed them. But I don't know. So she went to feed the cat, opened the door to the flat, and unfortunately found Keith on the floor in a pool of blood. And unfortunately, he had died. So obviously this is horrific for a little old lady to find. Something like this has happened in the flat underneath her house. And obviously to a friend of hers that she'd known for like 10 years, she'd known him for. Like they'd been friends through the church and they were neighbours, and this obviously was quite horrific for her. So she called the police. Obviously the police came and he was declared dead at the scene. The police said that the attack on Keith had been absolutely savage. It had involved 2 weapons, which is actually quite an unusual thing, 2 weapons. It was a very frenzied attack. He had suffered quite horrific injuries. And they believed him to have been beaten with a ball hammer and then stabbed numerous times in the back. Now, both of those items were not at the scene. So the murder weapons were not there. Now, we've been doing this podcast long enough to know that kind of attack is not going to allow the perpetrator to leave the scene in pristine condition.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So we're looking now for somebody who is, I would say, probably quite heavily stained in blood, or somebody that brought a change of clothes with them for changing out of after this attack. Now the police closed off Duchess Road at both ends of the street so that they would not allow anybody to enter or leave the street. They began searching because the houses are they've not really got gardens, but they've got this tiny little areas in the front of each. It's like a terraced row of houses. And they've got like these tiny little patches sort of in front of them that are usually behind like walls and stuff. So they were checking drains. They were checking all the immediate areas to see if any of these items had been discarded. Unfortunately, they found nothing. So the police appealed for anyone that knew about this murder through the murderer to come forward. Now, this I thought was really interesting. They basically released this appeal saying, regardless of any feelings of loyalty, the fact that this person was prepared to carry out such a savage attack is a reason for you to forget the loyalty that you may have to that person. And so they believe that this person had either gone home to somebody or had spoken about this to somebody, had been seen covered in blood, possibly. And that was their sort of appeal that they put out. Now, Betty told the police about this man.
Real quick, what time of day was it? Did they believe he was murdered?
Well, he got home at like 20 to 1. She went down to see him at about 1 o'clock. And then he was due to go to work for 2. He was supposed to be at work for 2. And obviously Betty found him at like 4:30. Yep, right in the middle of the day.
So how does someone just walk away, possibly covered in blood, and is not really seen.
Mm.
That's strange to me. And real quick, he said he was found actually inside his flat with
In
the door
his flat,
shut.
yeah. It was in his flat. No signs of a break-in, no signs of any forced entry. He was in his flat with the door shut.
And all the wounds were on the back of him?
Well, he had been
Or
beaten with a hammer, and then he was stabbed in the back a lot of times.
so the hammer did it appear like he was facing his attacker then and then was stabbed?
I think he's got significant injuries everywhere. I think this was a
Everywhere.
completely frenzied attack. They've not said that whether it was more concentrated on the back, but then the fact that he's been stabbed in the back quite a lot of time, I'm wondering whether he was hit from behind with the hammer, fallen, and then the attack carried on.
Because this is my initial thoughts, right? So it depends on where he's first hit is how I'm viewing what happened, right? So let's say that he's first hit in the towards the front side, right? Let's say temple area, right? Where it looks like the guy swung the hammer and hit him, in his face, right? So that's more of like, oh, hey, opening the door and then I'm attacked. But if he's attacked and he's hit from behind inside of his residence, it almost sounds like someone's with him. And he's going inside.
There definitely would have been. Yeah, because if you remember, the front door isn't the front door to his flat. The front door is the front door to the hallway, and then it would come into his flat. So he went to answer the door and then said, come in, and then brought the person back to his flat.
Okay.
So my initial thoughts without actually seeing, my initial thoughts for this that made sense to me was that he would, because of the injuries and the stabbings to his back specifically, was he hit from behind as he entered his flat? Also, we don't know exactly where in his flat he was found because we haven't got it. But was he hit from behind as he went in and then
went forward?
And then he was stabbed and he was hit again with the hammer from behind. So it would be interesting to know where the majority of the injuries were concentrated. Would then give us an idea as to whether or not he was hit from behind predominantly or whether he was hit from the front. But I'm thinking if somebody hits you in the face, you're probably going to fall backwards or possibly forwards. But if they hit you in the front of your head or the side of your head, you're just going to fall down, aren't you?
You're going to, yeah.
So I'm thinking if it was hit from behind, he's going to fall forward. So that was just my initial thoughts on this. That makes more sense to me. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Betty had told the police about this man, obviously, because she had seen the last person that she had seen going out of his flat, obviously not coming in, but the last person was actually coming, and he must have been coming out of his flat because he was coming up the stairs out of that hallway. Is coming up the stairs onto the street level. So we know he was coming. The only place he could have been was the flat. So when they did their door-to-door inquiries, another neighbour said that a suspicious man had been seen hanging around earlier that day. He was a young man, very thin, between 5'10" and 6 foot tall. He had dark hair and he was wearing a blue and white knitted woolen bobble hat with distinctive dark rimmed glasses. Now I'm going to put the composite sketch up for you because the composite sketch I think looks like a hungover Where's Wally. It's a very distinctive look. It's not your average normal looking guy. It is if you knew that person, you would know that person from that sketch. I believe.
You sent it to me. And I said immediately, that looks like John Lennon.
John Lennon, yeah. And you're right, it does. It does. Now, now, the thing that they say about him, particularly about this guy, is that he had quite sunken cheeks and that he was quite rough looking. He had like a beard or stubble. He was wearing a dark, what they describe as an anorak, and then dirty white trainers. So this coincided with what Betty said, because obviously Betty had said that she had seen this guy with this blue and white hat going up the stairs, coming out of Keith's flat. Now, earlier in the day, a BBC producer was walking past Keith's flat. I don't know if he was going to work or wherever he was going, but he was walking past Keith's flat and remembers seeing at the point that he got to the flat, remember seeing a man walking up the stairs out of Keith's flat carrying 2 plastic bags. Now, one of them was white and the other one he believed to be like a Marks and Spencer bag. And over here, Marks and Spencer is like it's a grocery store, a department store. It's they do a bit of everything, but it's upper market. It's a bit more expensive. Food is more expensive there. I would say, I don't want to get shot for this one, but I would say it appeals to an older clientele.
Okay.
It's not cheap food. It's a nicely branded supermarket. They also do clothes. They also do homeware, but very little homeware, but that kind of thing. So it's one of those sort of departments, like one of those sort of shops. And so they do have a distinctive colour bag. We don't usually have very many businesses well known that have that kind of bag. So you would know an M&S bag if you saw, and you've been to M&S because I took you to M&S when we went to CrimeCon last year. So you know where I mean. So it's like that kind of thing. Well, the M&S that I took you to was like a quick stop off M&S. It was like the little convenience M&S, like a M&S late kind of thing. But the actual bigger stores have got like clothing and things like that, and you can buy fresh flowers and you can buy all sorts of kind of stuff like that, footwear, underwear, that kind of thing. So we know that this guy is coming out. This is now the second person that has seen a man leaving Keith's flat. Now, a week after the murder, the police set up a reconstruction, and we had this guy who pretended to be Keith and retraced Keith's steps that day. By that time, about 450 people had been interviewed already by police regarding this case. And police believed that the motive for this murder was possibly theft or robbery. They didn't think that Keith being gay was anything to do with this. They didn't think it was like a sexually motivated attack. They don't think that this person was in a relationship, or that the visit was of a sexual nature. So not like he was just going to like hook up before he went to work, because he was running late for work. So he was like almost on his toes out the door. So he wasn't expecting anyone to come. So it's not like this was a pre-planned, because he said to Betty he wasn't expecting anyone to come. So it wasn't like this was a pre-arranged appointment, although by the sounds of the greeting that he gave the guy, it kind of sounded like he knew who the person was. So not a total stranger, okay?
Yeah.
Police found that there were 2 items thought to have been missing from Keith's flat. There's no mention of any money missing, his wallet missing, no anything like that. The 2 things that are missing is a filofax and an album of photographs. Now, police don't know for definite whether this is of any significance, because it was there. They know it was there 2 weeks before he was killed, and they know it wasn't there when they searched his flat the day he died. So, but whether that is actually something that was his, or whether he was looking at that and then gave it back to the person that it belonged to, or whether this person took it from the flat that day, they're not actually sure. But as far as I could find, nobody's actually ever come forward to say, oh, actually, that was my filofax and I lent it to him because he wanted it for this, or those photos were of this and he wanted to see them, so they were actually my photos. No one's actually come forward to say that. All we know is that they're missing from the flat.
That is strange.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's strange, too, that they know that specifically that those items are missing.
Yeah.
Because those are very...
how they know.
They're not items that someone would readily say, oh, his filofax is gone, right?
Yeah.
That's not something that you share with people, like, hey, look what I have. I have a file, it's just a random, just normal thing you'd find in a house.
Yeah.
But they happen to know, like, this for a fact is missing.
Yeah.
So then if those are the 2 things missing, then you got to ask, why those 2 things?
Yeah. Why are they missing? And if it was somebody who lent them to him for any reason, why hasn't that person come forward and say, actually, they weren't his, they were mine? He was just borrowing them for whatever.
No one lends out pictures. You know.
Well, they do.
Do they though?
Yeah, of course. We're talking about 1989 here, so the mobile phone and the file sharing and like social media and stuff isn't a thing. So back then, if you had like, I don't know, maybe you had pictures of the coronation or something, and you wanted to show him, he was interested in, I don't know, trains or something.
Okay, possibly.
Something. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. He's an older guy. Maybe it was, something he was interested in. He was looking at. Then it made me think, oh, maybe it was photos. Maybe he had photos of him and somebody together. And perhaps maybe that person didn't want to be associated with him because they didn't want to be associated with him. Perhaps,
It it could have been someone who wasn't out, with their sexuality.
It could be. That's right. And
And
didn't want
something
any
happened between the two, and he wanted to make sure that his secret,
stayed safe.
stays. Yeah,
Mm.
because the file facts and pictures, those are two very personal things.
Phone numbers in a file of fax.
Yes.
Names and phone numbers and addresses in a file of fax, because back then we wouldn't have had social media, so everything is done by phone. Now, funny you should bring that up, because it's thought that Keith received 3 phone calls in the week prior to his murder, which may be significant. Okay. Police were confident that these phone calls were made by the same person and suggested that the subject of the calls was an argument. The first of the calls took place in the early hours of Tuesday before his murder. The other 2 occurred between 6 and 9 on the Wednesday before his murder. Okay, he was murdered on the Sunday. Okay. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, they couldn't identify who it was that was calling Keith. It's not known who he was on the phone to. Now, on the Friday before his murder, which was 2 days before, Keith was seen having lunch with somebody in the Marble Arch area of London. This person has never been identified. No one's ever come forward to say, oh, that was me. We had lunch together. No one, but we know that he was seen having lunch with somebody. Now, the thing is with Keith, because he travels so much on the train, on different stations, he had a lot of acquaintances in a lot of different areas. So he was a very well-known, well-liked man. He also frequented lots of different pubs and lots of different gay clubs. So he was known to a lot of people.
Okay. Because I was going to ask him, how do they know that was him? I mean, London's a huge place.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's hundreds of people in London that look like Keith.
Yeah, but don't forget, he used to go on the train, didn't he? It's going to be somebody that he knew. Yeah.
So my question would be, is it someone that actually knew Keith, or was it someone that just had heard the story?
I believe it was someone that knew him.
Who knew him.
Saw him having lunch, but they don't know who with.
Mm-hmm. But once again, so this could be nothing, since he travels a lot and he has acquaintances
everywhere
in a lot of different places. Yeah. Okay.
So then this got me looking at, because this is literally where the case kind of stopped. There isn't a suspect other than this guy. Nobody knows who this guy is. So it got me. Now, you said, when I said to you today that this case was from Bristol, you said, oh, there's been quite a few from Bristol. And I said, when I started looking to how many people missing and murdered in Bristol, there's a huge amount of unsolved cases in Bristol, like loads. So I had a look and I thought, we're going to be stupid not to talk about these different cases. Now, Keith Burgess was found murdered at his home in Clifton in Bristol in 1989. Now, a mile away in 1984, there was a murder victim called Shelley Morgan. Okay, so she was murdered before he was. Both victims were stabbed in the back many times. Okay, both crimes occurred in the middle of the day, and both crimes are still unsolved. Okay. So that's one, a mile away from each other, similar circumstances, both found with multiple stab wounds, both found the same way, no bad entry wound, nothing like that. Now, another person. When was she was in 1980. She was 1984. He was 1989.
So 5-year difference between the two, a mile apart, similar circumstances. Okay.
Yeah. The second one that I've seen that people have tried to link him to is that of, and I'd never heard of this one, the Batman rapist. Okay, who was a prolific rapist who terrorized Bristol. And Bath, and the Bristol and Bath area, and had never been caught. Called the Batman rapist because he wore a cap with a Batman logo on it. Now, the crimes are not similar whatsoever, okay? However, when you look at the composite sketches, they are very similar. So I can see why people have tried to make the connection of vicious attack. There was one person that I've found on Reddit who had said that this Batman rapist was also found waiting outside the apartment of a lone male, but nothing ever happened. So, but then I don't know if that's just people just trying to make connections where, there isn't connections. Another possible suspect for this is a guy called Mark Shilliber. Now, in 1998, Mark Shilliber stabbed to death Kevin Muhaydin, I think that's how you say it, who was a gay male in his flat in Bath. Now, Bath and Bristol are really close together. Keith Burgess was obviously also gay, also stabbed to death at home. Now, Mark Schilleber would have been in his early 20s in 1989. So he would fit in with the description. And look at the picture of him. Yes, he does look similar to the description of this guy. He was arrested and cleared of Kevin's murder, but went on to kill an 18-year-old girl called Rebecca Stores. So although he was acquitted for the first murder, reading through it and reading things, I don't think he was innocent of that first murder, but he was acquitted, and that's the end of that. But he did go on to kill a girl called Rebecca Stores, who was 18, and was then sentenced to 22 years in prison. So could it have been that this guy had also killed this other guy, Keith? Possibly. He's around the right age at the right time in the right area.
I would feel better about any of these suspects if we were able to link him to being at least social with Keith.
Oh, well, it's funny you should say that.
Oh, okay.
It's funny you should say that. Now, Keith Burgess visited the Alma Tavern, which is a pub near the church. Well-known live music venue, okay? Hosted lots of gigs there. Shelley Morgan also attended Bristol Polytechnic, which also hosted major live event gigs, okay?
Right.
She was also seen at Ashton Court, which is another place that Keith had visited, which also hosted major gigs, okay? Melanie Hall, if you remember, we did the case of Melanie Hall, who was killed in Bristol. She attended Bath University, which also hosted major music gigs, okay?
Yeah.
So this line of inquiry took me down the road of a bouncer or a door staff, okay?
Yeah. Yep.
A guy that was a bouncer at major gigs, which then I thought, hang on a minute, there's a possibility that this one person links the three murders, Keith, Shelley and Melanie, who all attended major gigs in the area in these three venues.
Okay.
So I looked at that and I thought, that's interesting. He used to frequent pubs, clubs, bars, big gigs, music festivals, that kind of stuff, as did the other girls. Is it a possibility that it was a member of door staff or security that would easily be able to, if they met that person or I'd seen them a few times at these different venues, because they say major gigs, but I mean, we're not talking like millions of people, we're talking about the same sort of area, regular gigs. So then it got me wondering, I wonder if it was a member of door staff that either worked on the door at these different pubs or worked on the door at these different venues that got to know Keith, obviously knew he was gay, maybe that was a way in. You could also then, there's ways, if you're a door staff, there's ways that person is a bit inebriated after a night out, that kind of thing. And I thought that's a really interesting line of inquiry. I definitely think the police, if they haven't, definitely would be worth looking at who was working at those venues. Was there somebody that worked at all of them? Because it seems strange that all three of them loved to go to live gigs in that area and all three of them ended up murdered.
Interesting.
It's a possibility. Another line of inquiry that I looked up was the fact that there had been some other railway worker murders. In 1994, I know this is later, but in 94, Basil Wickham, another gay British rail steward, was murdered in London. Basil worked on the London to Bristol train, and we also know that Kevin worked the London to Bristol train too. Mark Yendall, also a British rail steward, was murdered in Bristol in 1984. Not known if he was gay, but it is definitely something to look into. That's three male workers of the railway that were all murdered. So that's another line of inquiry I think you've got to look at.
You do. God,
and so it took me to like the bobble hat thing. That's the only thing that we really know. Looking at the way I could link this up with different people and different areas. The one thing that we know is constant in this case is that this guy that was seen wearing this distinctive blue and white bobble hat. So I had a look, because bobble hats are quite regularly seen in winter. They're not something that's like really, really rare, but the colours of this one are obviously significant. So this got me thinking, could it have been connected to a local club, or could it have been connected to a local sport or something? So I did a little bit of digging and found out that both Bristol Rovers and Cardiff City wear blue and white. So it could be that it was a football-based hat. Then I thought, okay, but also Bristol swim team also have blue bobble hats as part of their merch. So could it be that it was something to do with the Bristol swim team? Then, because of the description that we got of this guy, saying that he was scruffy, I wondered then, could this have been somebody who Keith had helped through the church? The fact that he was sort of grubby looking and he was a bit rough looking, he could have been given this hat from like a charity shop, or he could have been given it through a shelter or something like that, because people do donate clothes to shelters and things like that for homeless people. So could this be that this guy was homeless? That it did come out later in the investigation that they believed that the bobble hat man could have been a vagrant that Keith had helped at some point in his job. We don't know if it's definitely through the church, but that's like that's a common sense thing to think. But it could have been through his work on the railway.
But if it was a vagrant, why would they just take photographs and...
But we don't know for definite that it was that those photographs and that Filofax were taken that day. All we know is that they weren't there at the time police searched the flat, but they were 2 weeks before. I mean, he could have given them.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so
but nothing else was taken, right?
Well, we don't know if he had money stashed or anything like that. It could have been that he had money taken that nobody. I mean, he was a single guy living on his own, so you don't know what money he's got squirreled away. You know, so I'm wondering if stuff was taken that no one knows about.
Yeah.
But this guy has obviously come out of his flat with 2 plastic bags. So what was in the 2 plastic bags?
Oh yeah, that's true.
So what did he
taken?
Something. Yeah.
Well, a hammer's going to be in one, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly. So the weapons would have been in one bag.
But you don't need 2 bags for the weapons.
No.
Obviously.
No, that's right.
So it sounds like something else was taken from him or from the apartment or the flat. Yeah. I don't know about this.
And that's the thing. And then basically the case is cold because nobody has ever come forward to own up to having the Filofax, or nobody's ever come forward to own up that the photos were actually theirs, or they lent him to him, or they bought him that photo album. That's how they know it's missing, or what he used to having those photo albums, if it was his, you know? So, I mean, when we were kids, we used to have these big photo albums. I don't think they even do them anymore. They were huge, like leather-bound things with like a sticky flap that you used to put your pictures in and then fold the flap down. So in our house, Mum always used to get those out. Like when we had friends around, stuff. Oh, come and have a look at Cherry when she was doing this at school, and come and have a look at this, and this is when Cherry's dad was in the army. This is the big spider that that kind of stuff. So they used to come out a lot, and so I'm wondering whether he had them to look at, or were they his?
Now, did they say when they said the photo? Was it an actual album that was missing, or was it just photos? It was an album. That was
it was
missing.
An album. Yeah, it's a photo album and a Filofax that was missing.
Huh. That's interesting. There's obviously more to this case that police have not released. Obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's going to be stuff that they've kept back because then only the killer would know those things. But I think from listening to this, I thought it was very interesting how the police put out their appeal. The fact that they concentrated on the fact that you may know about this case through somebody else. So it kind of gives me an idea that they perhaps know, they know that maybe who this relationship is, but they're not. I mean, if they had enough suspicion to go and, arrest somebody for this crime, then they would just go and arrest them, wouldn't they? So they obviously haven't got that much on them, but it sounds like they've got an idea of some kind of event.
It almost sounds like there was some sort of rumors that had been going around that the police knew of.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is someone that he knew.
Oh, definitely.
Because he was willing to let him,
Let them in.
and take him to the flat.
As somebody he was familiar with, at least, to let them into his home.
Mm-hmm. But it's
Or was it,
the
would it be somebody collecting for charity and he's gone, oh, okay, yeah. But then would you let them in? You just go, oh, just wait there a second, and you'd shut
yeah,
the
I'll
door
be right
too, wouldn't
back.
you? I'll
Yeah,
be right back. So
right.
I think it was somebody he was on speaking terms with, familiar. But you got to remember he was
Mm-hmm.
running late for work. So he was, it was obviously not a planned visit. He wasn't expecting this person to come because
That,
he was on his way to work. So,
yeah.
and he said to Betty, no, I'm not expecting anyone. So it's obviously a surprise to him that this person's turned up.
Huh. Interesting.
It really is. But I read about this and I just felt instantly sorry for him because
Yeah.
obviously he's suffered an absolutely horrendous death, but also the fact that everybody was so complimentary about this guy. And I wondered whether he was a bit vulnerable because he was such a nice person. Everyone said how lovely he was, a people pleasing person, would do anything for anybody. I wonder if it was like
Mm-hmm.
he had been taken advantage of by somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Was he being blackmailed for something? What
Mm-hmm.
was he in? Like you said earlier, was he in a relationship he shouldn't have been in, and he was being blackmailed because of that? The actual church that he belonged to, this All Saints Church, they came under huge scrutiny because I think it was the bishop there had wanted to employ a gay clergyman or something, and we're talking like back in the
Yes.
80s, and so this was a
Yes.
huge thing, and everybody knew about that church.
Mm-hmm.
So could he have
Yep.
been targeted because of that? Because he worked at the church and perhaps they then found out he was gay and then it was a homophobic attack. Could that be the
Right.
case? Yeah. So, it's has the church come under scrutiny because of this guy that they're trying to
Uh-huh.
ordain as a clergyman that's gay? Has that brought
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary and unwanted speculation onto the church?
Right. I do have a question about that real quick.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that homosexuality in the Church of England is okay. I mean, it's not frowned upon because once you when we started this, and we talked about Keith's homosexuality, but then also him being extremely involved in a church.
Mm.
I immediately thought like that is like two really conflicting sides of this guy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just an American thing where I was raised, Catholic, right? So so of course in the Catholic Church that's not something that you couldn't be openly gay and be a priest when I was growing up, or in 1989 that was not happening. But is like in
No.
the Church of England, is it a little bit,
No, it's
is
the
it more
same.
relaxed?
No, 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 no. The whole homosexuality within churches is only been something that's has been recent. Really, it's only something that
Mhm.
recently has been accepted. Back in the 80s, hell no, I don't think that would have been, accepted. And so I thought the
That's
same thing. I
interesting.
thought it was very interesting that he was an openly gay man, but then I wonder, how openly gay was he? Was it that the church people knew that he was
Yeah.
gay? Everybody knows now following it.
Yeah.
But at the time, was he openly gay within the church? It might not have been something that he was open with everybody. Gay clubs and stuff like that have been going like in the 60s and the 70s, but they were always sort of out the way, weren't they? They were always disguised as something else. So although we know he frequented gay bars, we don't know that that was something that he made public to everybody because that's not
Yeah.
actually been described. But it's very interesting. I don't know how well he knew this man that was due to be ordained, that they were trying to get ordained into the church. How well did he know him? Did he know him very well?
Yeah.
If you look at the picture of that man and then look at the picture of the composite sketch, they're very similar. So did he
Yeah,
know him?
very.
Did he know him?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I mean, you look at him and like even now, because I said, "Oh, he looks like John
John
Lennon."
Lennon. Yeah.
The compiler looks like John Lennon. Well, you look at the guy now, or a recent picture of him, and it's like, yeah, he just looks like what you could expect John Lennon to look like if he was in his 70s or
Yeah.
So
And obviously, I'm not pointing fingers saying that it is him. I'm just saying
no,
it's a
no,
very,
no.
it's a very, very, it's a coincidence that this guy that they're trying to get ordained into the church, one is gay, the same as Keith, and two looks exactly like the guy that they saw coming out of Keith's flat. I'm not saying that he hurt Keith, but you
Yeah.
would be stupid to look at those two pictures and say there's absolutely no correlation because they've got the same lip shape, they've got the same face shape, they've got the same nose shape. So it's an interesting point to look at too.
They just knowing Keith's, his what he does with the church, and he's very involved with the church. There's no way that this guy didn't know who Keith was.
I agree.
I don't think there's any way.
No, I agree.
It's interesting though.
It is, and I just feel for him
Very,
because
very
I feel he was such a nice man, and everybody seems to say he was what a nice guy he was, how lovely he was, how friendly he was, how he would do anything for anyone, and he ends up with a death like this, which he definitely didn't deserve. It's a really sad case, and I'd never heard of it. And when I was researching a different case, this one came up. It was funny; it was the Batman killer that led me to this case, and I started reading this, and I was like, "What?" Like the Batman rapist, sorry.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was just reading that thinking, what a stupid name to give somebody. This is ridiculous.
It's a dumb name.
And then this came up and I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. Melanie Hall, we covered that one. And then I just started looking and I thought, we've got to talk about this case because I think somebody somewhere knows who this person is that was coming up the stairs. He's too distinctive not to recognize.
I can't get the thought out of my mind that this was someone who had something to hide.
Yeah.
And he was worried that Keith would maybe not like I don't want to say Keith is like, threatening this guy like I'm gonna out you to your family.
No, but like didn't want to be sort of associated with him.
Yeah, like this is someone that he like this was like his last resort. Someone like I can't do this anymore. I'm worried that this guy's gonna.
It's a very personal attack, isn't it?
Personal yeah, they're gonna release this personal information about me. I don't, I'm not comfortable with that.
That's right.
It's gonna ruin my life.
Yeah,
so I have no other choice.
I agree with you.
That's what it seems like to me.
Very interesting.
It doesn't seem like a robbery or theft to me.
No,
it doesn't. It's not a. It doesn't sound like it's a random attack because he let him inside the building. And
of course, and he knew him. Spoke to him.
Lead him. Yeah, he was going to lead him into the flat.
Yeah, spoke to him nicely, like in a familiar way.
So, I mean, I think this has something to do with his sexuality.
Do you? You do think that?
I do. I do. And I think it's someone who was afraid of being outed. That's how I feel about it, and that's what I think. That's what it just seems like to me.
Well, I must say that the gay community in Bristol at the time were very, very, which is nice. They were very happy with the way that the police had handled this case. They were really, and it's not very often you say that we can report that everyone was really happy with the way that the police worked, but the community wide were saying that they'd handled it in such a sensitive way, and it wasn't by any means bashing homosexual people in the area or anything like that. It was really carefully done and very well done as far as I can understand from what people have reported. But obviously to this day, from 1989, we're now in 2023, still unsolved. And Keith's murder is still, Keith's murderer has still gotten away with his murder. And I thought it was an important story to tell.
It is. And I think it's a tough one because it sounds like with how this attack occurred that there's probably not a whole lot of DNA to even analyze in it. It's not like, it doesn't sound like Keith had the ability to fight back or to like do anything. It sounds like Keith was walking in and he was hit from behind. So he had no idea what was about to happen.
I hope so. I hope that is the case. I hope that is the case, that he had absolutely no idea what was going on, because that would be a terrifying way to end your life. And I really hope that that's the case for him and for his family. I hope that is the case.
I think the hammer hit was, I was going to say, I think the hammer hit was to render him unconscious, and the knife was to kill him. That's what it seems like.
And I hope that if somebody is listening to this somewhere, because I think that if you know some information like that, I don't think you'd be able to help yourself with technology the way it is today to look for stuff like that. To see if there's any updates on the case, to see if anything's happened. And I really hope that if somebody has done that and has come across our podcast and is listening, I really hope that you can find it within yourself to just anonymously give the police some information that would help this case. Because if somebody can kill somebody else like that in such a savage and brutal manner, that person really doesn't deserve to be walking free.
Right.
And think about if that was your family, what would you want?
Yeah, exactly. These old cases are really hard to do because in a sense you kind of feel a sense of helplessness.
Yeah.
Because the longer they go on, it just seems like it's less likely they're going to be solved because evidence is going to be lost. You're going to have potential witnesses who are not around anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
People that might have heard rumors might have forgotten facts or who said what.
It makes me more determined, though, and that's why I like to concentrate my research on older cases, because I don't want those people to be forgotten, and I don't want their deaths to be unsolved. I want to be able to, visit their grave one day and say, we got him, we did it. You can rest now. You can rest in peace now. It's all done. So that is this week's case for you.
Yeah, Keith did not deserve it. He seemed like a absolutely outstanding citizen and a really good guy.
Yeah, he didn't deserve that. So yeah, that's this week's case.
Well, thank you very much for that.
No problem.
So, as always, we like to end each episode on a lighter note, and we do that by doing a little section we call Dumb Criminal.
Hey, use a dummy and use a piece of shit.
That always makes me laugh.
So Terry, there's a few things that you really shouldn't do when you're out at a club or a bar. One of those things is getting so inebriated that you start taking off your clothes. All right?
No, definitely not. No one wants to see that, guys.
No one wants to see that. And you should definitely not do that if you are the mayor of the city in which you are having a good time.
You definitely
shouldn't.
Taking
clothes off.
Definitely not.
So just a few weeks ago, this was actually during Holy Week, the mayor of Colima, Colombia, his name is Martin Alfonso Meja, was at a club having a good time, drinking, doing whatever.
A really good time.
Was having a really good time when he began to take off his clothes. So he first started by ripping off his shirt, right? And shaking his stuff.
Wow.
Then he was seen standing next to a bench, pulling down his trousers to show off his back bare side in front of a group of young women.
Okay. Not appropriate, really.
Now, not only was he showing his rear end, he started to shake his penis around.
Oh, no. Now, he's going to regret that in the morning.
Also, unfortunately for the mayor, this whole thing was filmed and shared on social media.
No.
So now the mayor's junk can be seen
all over social media.
All over. All right.
That's awful.
Now, of course, his fellow politicians in the area, they were ashamed of what he did. One saying that the responsibility that politicians have obliged us to show exemplary public behavior. Obviously, this guy did not have exemplary public behavior.
I mean, if he was at a family party and if he was just like getting his bum out, just dancing and being silly, fair enough. But the whole thing gets a little bit serious when you get your penis out. It's not really very good.
Now, ladies, if you're like, "Ooh, I want to check this out," I probably suggest not.
No.
So this guy, he
no.
probably had no. I don't think this guy can actually see his penis with how big his belly is. So maybe he didn't know his willy was out.
Maybe. That could have been it.
Maybe he had no idea. He had no idea that it was flapping in the wings. The wind.
But wouldn't you feel the breeze?
You would think so.
You think he would feel a little bit drafty down there, and you think, whoa, my bits are jangling out. But then if he's drunk, I think maybe not. Yeesh, that's bad. He is dumb. Did he actually get done for like indecent exposure or something?
Oh, I don't know yet. I don't know. The article doesn't say. He has come out and blamed his actions on being drugged at the nightclub.
Yeah, of course he did.
And then, of course, the owner of the nightclub has said, absolutely no way, this did not happen.
He's just drank too much.
Now, this isn't the first time the mayor has been the subject of controversy. Actually, just 6 months ago, he appeared to be intoxicated at a festival where he took the stage to inform the crowd that he was corrupt.
Oh, do you know what? Is it wrong? But I kind of like this guy. The fact that he just got up on stage and told everyone how corrupt he is because he's drank too much. I'm totally not kosher. Don't vote for me.
No, I'm not good. I'm corrupt. Here's my willy.
Yeah, exactly. This will, woo! No, I like him. I can't help it. Sorry. I'd vote for him.
What's crazy is it's fun. As soon as I heard that like this happened in Colombia, I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
it makes sense. In Colombia.
Having a good time in Colombia. That's the way they do it down there.
Some CrimeCon Colombia.
Oh God, can you imagine? At the True Crime Awards this year, the winners are going to be up there shaking their things.
Yeah.
Well,
so while we don't know if he was arrested.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Why is that? My phone's on silent too. That's the mayor.
Is that the call from the mayor, Kalima?
He's ringing to say what the hell is
like,
the FBI?
He's like, hey, Cherry, we're gonna party. We're gonna party tonight.
Come see my junk. I love it.
So while we don't know if any charges were filed against him for his small actions, we do know that the local government are looking for
struck him off.
Possibly, yes, yeah. They're looking at possible disciplinary actions levied against the mayor for his.
Oh, just give him a slap on the wrist and don't let him be mayor anymore. Finish. There you go. I mean,
he was just having a good time, people.
He was just having a great time. Just there's worse things, there's worse crimes out there. But no, obviously, I can imagine that it would have upset quite a lot of people. So next time, keep it in your pants.
Yeah, that's one of those things. That's one of those things where at first it was probably funny when you take a shot like, look at the mayor, he's having a good time. But then it's like, whoa.
Yeah, there's a line, dude, and you've just completely obliterated it, But thank you for that. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us this week. We will be back again next week with another case. It'll be Morgan's case next week. So for now, be nice.
And bye.